At 7:03 a.m. on a cold Tuesday morning, the city was just waking up. The coffee shops were brewing, streets humming with the dull rush of early commuters, and everything felt almost peaceful. Until a call came in over the police radio. A suspicious black male reported near the corner of Jefferson and 5th. No crime committed, no threat identified, just suspicious. Darius Taylor was 26, dressed in dark jeans and a navy hoodie, walking briskly to his second job. He had headphones in, not because he didn't want to engage with the world, but because it was his way of silencing the constant noise of judgment that trailed him everywhere. He was a son, a brother, and a dreamer, with big goals and bigger responsibilities. Life hadn't given him shortcuts, and so he made every step count. That morning he was thinking about how he'd surprise his mom with the money he'd saved for her medication, but 2 police cruisers pulled up beside him before he could finish crossing the street. "Hey, hands where we can see them!" Startled, confused, and with earbuds still in, Darius turned, only to be shoved against the hood of the cruiser. "Why are you resisting?" the officer barked. "I'm not resisting," Darius said, calmly, respectfully. But by then, it didn't matter. He was cuffed, searched, thrown in the back seat. His phone slid from his pocket and shattered on the pavement, the lock screen photo of his little sister cracked and fading under the sun. Neighbors looked on, some recording, some shaking their heads as if this scene was routine, and it was. In the precinct, they booked him on suspicion of burglary. Someone had reported a break-in 2 blocks away. No description, no evidence. But Darius, young, black, alone, fit the fear in someone's imagination. The officer in charge, Officer Collins, wrote in his report that Darius appeared nervous, refused to comply, and matched the description. But what no one realized, not until much later, was that Collins had forgotten one detail. His Bodycam was still recording. Everything. From the moment they approached Darius without cause, to the way he calmly explained he was just trying to get to work. The footage showed no resistance, no suspicious behavior. Nothing, except a young man being racially profiled and humiliated in broad daylight, and the best part, the Bodycam also caught what happened after they put him in the holding cell. The moment when Officer Collins laughed with another officer, saying, "We'll just say he fit the description." That always works. Those words, carelessly spoken. Cruel. Recorded. When the public defender got access to the footage, her heart sank. She'd seen cases like this 100 times, but this time, the truth was undeniable. Darius didn't just walk out free. He walked out with the truth on his side, and when the footage went viral, it shook the city. The Bodycam footage spread like wildfire across social media. Within hours, hashtags like "Justice for Darius" and "Truth on Tape" were trending nationwide. People weren't just watching, they were reacting, protesting, demanding answers. But for Darius, it wasn't about becoming a hashtag. He didn't want fame. He wanted his name back, his dignity, his peace. The mayor called for an immediate internal investigation. Officer Collins was suspended, pending review. And for the first time in his life, Darius found himself not fighting to prove he wasn't guilty, but being believed. Still, the damage had been done. Darius had spent 14 hours behind bars. He lost his job at the warehouse that day for not showing up, despite the reason. His shattered phone meant he missed his sister's recital and his mother. She sat alone in the ER that night, wondering why her son hadn't come through. Even when the truth sets you free, it doesn't return what was stolen. A local reporter named Layla Morris reached out, hoping to share his story in her Sunday column. She expected anger, rage, bitterness. But Darius surprised her. He didn't yell, he didn't curse the system. He spoke about mindfulness. "It's easy to be angry," he told her. "But that doesn't help me heal. I want people to see what happened. Not just to me, but to thousands like me, and wake up." He began volunteering at local schools, speaking to young men who looked like him, wore the same hoodies, carried the same fears. He told them to document everything, to speak clearly, to protect their peace and never let a broken system define their worth. And slowly, something changed. The city council approved new training for police officers, including Racial Bias Awareness and De-Escalation Strategies. Darius was invited to speak on a panel. Not because he was an expert, but because he lived it. The officers who arrested him never apologized directly, but their silence said enough. Darius took that silence and turned it into something powerful, a non-profit organization called unchecked, providing free bodycams to underserved communities and legal education to high school students. He taught them how to use their phones wisely, how to advocate for themselves, how to remain calm in chaos, not because they should have to, but because their lives might depend on it. What began as a traumatic morning walk became a national conversation, and for Darius, that was enough. He said it best in his final interview on national television. They called me a criminal, but I walked out with truth. Not everyone gets that chance. So if I have the mic now, I'm going to speak for those who can't. He didn't want revenge. He wanted redemption. For the system, for the people, and for himself. And maybe, just maybe, that's how real change begins. But redemption isn't just an idea. It's a daily choice. For Darius, that meant waking up each morning with intention. He traded anger for action. He stopped scrolling endlessly through stories of injustice and instead started writing letters, real letters, to lawmakers, school boards and local judges. He became obsessed with one question: how do you fix a system that's been broken longer than you've been alive? The answer wasn't simple, but he learned to start small. He met with community leaders and started a Saturday workshop called Know Your Rights. Teenagers came in with earbuds and skepticism, but they left with understanding. Not fear, not hate, just the tools to survive and thrive in a world where the rules were often written against them. At one of those workshops, a 15-year-old boy raised his hand and asked, "What if they don't listen?" Darius paused, thought hard. "Sometimes they won't," he said. "But the truth isn't for them, it's for you. You carry it, and if you protect it, it'll protect you back." That became his mantra. Protect the truth, live in the truth, let it speak for you, and people listened. The city invited Darius to speak during Police Accountability Week. He stood on a podium just blocks from where he was once thrown to the pavement, but this time, people clapped. This time, the badge beside him didn't represent fear. It represented a fragile, possible future. Still, healing wasn't linear. There were nights Darius lay awake replaying the arrest, the rough hands, the cold cuffs, the weight of being misunderstood. But he'd close his eyes and remember what came after, the look on his mother's face when she saw him free. The messages from strangers saying, you gave me hope. The boys at the workshop who now carried notebooks, not just smartphones, it gave the pain meaning. And that meaning gave him strength. Months later, when Officer Collins faced departmental review, Darius was asked if he wanted to attend. He said no. "I've already seen everything I need," he told the investigator. "My fight was never with him. It's with what made him see me as less than human." Instead, Darius kept building. He expanded on record to 3 more cities, brought in pro bono lawyers, and partnered with a tech company to create a phone app that records interactions and stores them securely in the cloud. He called it TrueView. The downloads hit 100,000 in the first month. He didn't celebrate with champagne or press conferences. He just went back to work, quietly, consistently, like someone who understood that legacy is built not in moments, but in movement. And slowly that movement grew. Parents brought their kids to his workshops. Judges referenced on record in sentencing reforms, and people who once saw Darius as just another headline began to see him for what he truly was, a catalyst. One afternoon, a local reporter asked him if he forgave the officers. He looked out the window, then said, "I don't know. But I've forgiven myself, forever thinking I was powerless." That was the turning point, not the arrest, not the video, not the apology that never came. It was the realization that no one can take your voice unless you let them. And Darius. He had learned to speak louder than the silence, stronger than the slander, and clearer than the system ever expected. So when people now ask him what happened that day, he doesn't say, "I was arrested." He says, "I woke up, and the world is starting to wake up with him." But waking up is only the beginning. For Darius, Awareness turned into mission, not one built on vengeance, but on vision. He realized he couldn't undo what had happened to him, but he could prevent it from happening to someone else. He began sitting in on school board meetings, not to accuse, but to ask, what are we teaching young black boys about authority, safety, and self-worth? Too often, the answers were uncomfortable, but he listened anyway, because change doesn't come from shouting, it comes from showing up. At one meeting, a teacher approached him in tears. She said, "I used to be afraid of saying the wrong thing, but watching your story helped me realize silence is worse." That stuck with him, so he kept speaking. At colleges, at prisons, in courtrooms where boys like him sat in orange jumpsuits, waiting for someone, anyone, to believe they were more than the worst thing they'd ever been accused of. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He told them the truth. Sometimes justice takes its time. Sometimes it never comes in the form you expect. But if you stay grounded, stay honest, and stay ready, you won't need someone else to save you. One boy asked, "But what if I already messed up?" Darius leaned in and said, "Then you start over. Because the truth doesn't need you to be perfect, it just needs you to be present." And presence became his legacy. He created a mentorship program beyond the label, pairing formerly incarcerated men with high school students most at risk. Every month, they shared meals, stories, and silence, the kind of silence that heals instead of hides. His idea wasn't revolutionary, it was human. It reminded people that transformation doesn't require a miracle, just a mirror and the courage to look into it. By the time Darius turned 28, his work had reached thousands. Not just through videos or apps or speeches, but through eye contact, through trust, through moments when a kid on the edge thought, maybe I don't have to go that way after all. And one afternoon, years after his arrest, Darius received an envelope. In the mail, no return address. Inside was a short note. "I was wrong. I didn't see you for who you were, but I do now, thank you." Underneath, a badge number, no name. He sat with it for a long time. He didn't post it online. He didn't use it in a speech. He just placed it in the same box where he kept the court dismissal papers and the first letter from a teenager who said, "You helped me believe in myself." Because Darius had learned something most people never do. Justice doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like clarity. Sometimes it looks like peace, and sometimes justice means knowing that when they tried to write you off, you rewrote the narrative instead. He kept that note not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Because even when the world moves on, when headlines fade, when apologies are whispered and not heard by the crowd, your story still matters. And Darius knew the real transformation had nothing to do with what the Bodycam revealed. It had everything to do with who he became after. He forgave, not for them but for himself. He released the bitterness, the what-ifs, the late nights spent reliving that sidewalk moment, frame by frame. Forgiveness wasn't forgetting. It was freedom. And he wasn't going to let a moment of injustice define his lifetime of purpose. In time, people started to ask Darius for advice, not just students, but parents, educators, even officers. A rookie cop once approached him after a seminar. Nervous, young, eyes full of questions. "I want to do the right thing," he said, "but sometimes I don't know what that even looks like anymore." Darius placed a hand on the young man's shoulder and replied, "Then start by seeing the people in front of you. Not the report, not the rumors, the person." That conversation changed something, not in a dramatic, movie-like way, but in the slow, necessary way that real change happens. One conversation, one decision, one human heart at a time, and Darius never stopped. Showing up, he started documenting other people's stories, men and women who were misjudged, misunderstood, mistreated, and who found their way back to dignity. Each video wasn't just a testimony, it was a mirror. Because sometimes the ones who need to see the truth the most aren't the ones who were wronged, but the ones who never knew how wrong they were. Darius's story became a ripple. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing clarity for himself and others. And in doing so, he gave permission for thousands to stand up, to speak up, and to live lives rooted in truth, not trauma. At a conference years later, someone asked him, "If you could go back to that night, would you change it?" He paused. The room went silent, and then, with eyes both heavy and hopeful, he said, "If it meant I wouldn't be the man I am today, no, I'd still live it, because now I get to help people wake up before the system tries to put them to sleep." That's the legacy he built, not on bitterness, not on the scars, but on resilience, wisdom, and truth. And maybe the most important thing Darius taught the world was this: they may call you names. They may label you. But the truth doesn't flinch, the truth doesn't lie, the truth always shows up, even if it takes a while to be seen, even if it takes a body cam, even if it takes everything you have. Because the truth sets everyone free.